Warner Bros. And HBO are currently building a reported $1.2 billion, decade-long television reboot of the Harry Potter universe. The original 8 films grossed over $7 billion, but they had to compress thousands of pages into just a few hours of screen time. That meant entirely cutting characters like Peeves and Winky and dropping massive lore elements like Voldemort's full backstory. To sell this new massive undertaking to a skeptical public, the studios leaned on a very specific promise. They explicitly marketed this new series as a faithful adaptation of J.K. Rowling's original novels. By using the word faithful, they set an incredibly strict metric for success. Fans immediately expected a true one-to-one translation of the text they grew up reading, and that strict metric is exactly why the fandom is currently splintering. Early casting leaks have revealed choices that directly contradict the physical descriptions laid out in the books.
The loudest debate centers on the rumored casting of Papa Essiedu as Severus Snape. By any stretch of the imagination, Essiedu does not physically match the author's strict description of the character. This discrepancy sparked an immediate online backlash. The core argument from frustrated readers is straightforward. You cannot call a project a faithful adaptation if you actively ignore the way the author described the characters. This leaves the production in an awkward spot. The studio explicitly sold the show on the promise of pure textual accuracy, yet their most visible early decisions actively depart from the source material. However, looking at the wider casting slate reveals the production's choices actually exist on a spectrum. Several of the announced actors look exactly like the characters on the page. Take the casting of Janet McTeer as Minerva McGonagall. Physically, she's a perfect match for the towering Transfiguration professor described in early chapters. The same goes for John Lithgow taking on the role of Albus Dumbledore. It is a highly book-accurate physical match for the Hogwarts headmaster. When you place Essiedu's Snape next to these highly literal interpretations, it creates a jarring inconsistency. He is left bearing the weight of that creative dissonance all by himself. These accurate choices prove the showrunners are entirely capable of matching the text literally. Their decision to deviate for Snape, then, becomes a conscious break from their own faithful promise. To understand why this specific choice is generating so much friction, we have to look back at the original film franchise and the history of visual accuracy in the wizarding world. Daniel Radcliffe, face of the entire franchise, actually had the wrong eye color. Harry's green eyes are a vital plot point, but Radcliffe's are blue. Emma Watson was universally embraced as Hermione Granger, despite lacking the large front teeth and massive bushy hair that defined the character on the page. And Jim Broadbent played Horace Slughorn without the character's signature, enormous silver walrus mustache. The original films clearly strayed from the physical descriptions, and they were still beloved. The critical difference is that the movie studio never marketed those films as perfectly faithful adaptations, they just told the story. HBO, on the other hand, backed themselves into a corner with their own marketing verbiage. Yet, if we look past the casting sheets and examine the physical production itself, there is strong evidence that the creators are actually obsessing over textual accuracy. Recent set leaks revealed the courtyard hedges at Hogwarts shaped into house emblems. For Ravenclaw, the show has restored the house colors to blue and bronze, and the mascot to an eagle. This corrects a major departure from the original films, which incorrectly used a raven and the color silver. Furthermore, early reports indicate the first season could dedicate roughly 6 to 8 hours of screen time entirely to the first book. That structural advantage allows the plot and world-building the pacing they require. Fixing deeply specific lore errors and expanding the runtime to properly adapt the narrative sends a clear signal. The showrunner's definition of fidelity applies heavily to the structural world-building and the plot, rather than purely the physical traits of the cast. This chart shows the sliding scale of screen translations. On one end is a rigid carbon copy, on the other, a loose reinterpretation. Centered is narrative fidelity. This prioritizes a character's emotional arc and core themes, capturing their essence rather than just their visual avatar. As this decade-long production begins, there is plenty of room for cautious optimism instead of immediate rejection. The ultimate success of this reboot won't be determined by whether the actors look perfectly matched to a chapter illustration. It will be measured by whether the series finally gives the full emotional weight of the story the room it always deserved to breathe.